Yo, what is up, guys? It's Pedro here, and in today's video, we'll be talking about the Jahan Dotson trade with the Philadelphia Eagles and the real reason that the Washington Commanders made this move. Also, this video is sponsored by BetUS. Make sure you guys check them out. First link in the description. Subscribe if you guys are new on the road to 14K. Do all that good stuff. It really does help out a ton. Like button, all that stuff. And it's free. It takes 1 second. But let's talk about this. So the Washington Commanders made a shocking trade yesterday. At least for me, I was not expecting it, especially within division. And now it's kind of, it sunk in a little bit, and I'm able to give you guys better thoughts than I was in my live when it was just like right in the moment. I literally turned the live on and gave you guys my thoughts for 45-ish minutes. And I still have most of the same thoughts, but I'm going to give you guys some more insight into it. So if you guys are living under a rock and you didn't see what happened, the Washington Commanders agreed to a trade with the Eagles, and the Commanders traded Jahan Dotson and a 5th-round pick in 2025 for a 3rd-round pick and 2 7th-round picks from the 2025 NFL Draft. So, they traded in division. Definitely was their best offer. If they're doing an in-division trade like this, it usually costs a little bit more. So they make this move, and, a lot of people are wondering, okay, why did they really do this? Was there some, beef between Jahan and Cliff or Jaden Daniels, or is there some other reason, or did they just want to get good value and they didn't really like the player as much as they maybe thought he would? And if you're an Eagles fan, trust me, I'll talk about, Jahan Dotson, the player, in a little bit, because I know some of you guys are still trying to learn more about him. And, he's a talented player for sure. And it does, suck that another Commanders / Redskins / Washington football team 1st-round pick didn't work out, at least here. It does suck, but let's get into it. This whole camp, we kind of were not hearing amazing things about Jahan. We weren't hearing his name a lot, and usually Jahan is more of a practice player than some of these other receivers, and you hear his name a lot. Like in his rookie year, you heard his name all the time, way more than Terry, probably a little bit because he's a rookie, but still, you heard his name all the time. And then, some players even, there was reports that some players thought he was better than Terry. I thought that was ridiculous right away. Talked about that in my video, put some tweets out about that, but the noise was there with Jahan in his rookie year. And guess what? He did produce. He had 7 touchdowns, over 500 yards in 12 games, missed some games because of injury. I think if he never had those injuries, he was on pace for 750 yards and like 11 touchdowns or something like that. I think he would have gotten more, because when he did come back the first game or two, he was a little bit slowed down because of the injuries. So I really think he would have done a little bit more than what he was projected to do. And last year, going into camp or in camp and stuff like that, we heard some good things from him too. Maybe not as much noise as his rookie season, but also, it is his rookie year. That's your 1st-round pick. That's who the media is going to report on. So we heard, some about him though last year, a lot more than this year. This camp, really didn't hear much about him. Maybe like a play or so every other day. And then the last month or so, there's some public stuff going on. Nothing crazy, but like not a lot of high praise from the coaches. Like Dan Quinn was saying, there's still, there's a battle for the number 2 receiver spot, and mentioned guys like Luke McCaffrey, Zacchaeus, De'Ami Brown before he mentioned Jahan. He still mentioned Jahan, and I don't think there was like any purpose or whatever intention in mentioning all those guys before him. But like, when you're a former 1st-round pick, and it seemed like before the season or before the offseason started, he was a shoo-in to make or to be the number 2 receiver. For him to be this, or Dan Quinn and the Commanders to be this deep in training camp, and him still talking about a competition at the number 2 spot, it says a lot about how Jahan was playing and how his fit was in this scheme. I really think the biggest issue wasn't necessarily his play, was more his fit in this system. That's why I think the real reason they traded him, also combined with maybe him not popping as much as they thought he would. But if he was even solid, like good this year for them, I think, or in camp, they would have kept him. But you saw in the preseason, De'Ami was showing out more than him, and it's just the preseason. But we were hearing maybe even De'Ami's name a little bit more in camp as well, and it seemed that I think And another reason, I really think Jaden's connection with Diami was a little bit stronger than his connection with Jahan's. And I've said this multiple times. The number one receiver, he's going to be the number one receiver regardless, almost every single quarterback. But the number two and number three might vary by quarterback. And it seemed like Diami and Jaden had a much better connection than Jahan and Jaden. That's kind of what I saw from the whole situation. You saw multiple times Diami Brown in the second Eagles, or not the second Eagles game, the second preseason game, and this was against the Dolphins, where Jaden was throwing the ball to him before he was even going into his break. And then he also checked the play in the first game to him for a 40-yard gain. So I think the connection between Diami and Jaden is much stronger than it is, or was, I guess, with Jahan and Jaden. I don't think there was any issues between them, but just, something to watch out for, or something that I picked up on. Here's what John, I'm sure you guys read it because I've been talking for a minute or two on here, but the more Jahan played, I think the less effective he became, and the more defenses knew how to defend him and stop him and take him away. That's what Keim said. I don't know when he said that. And then Jahan's body language and attitude were signs that he was frustrated, especially when the team had him returning punts. JP Finley said that. And that was a topic the last couple weeks that, Brian Mitchell kind of called out a receiver or two in the receiver room, and there was speculation. I thought it was Jahan, maybe a small percentage of Diami, but I really thought it was Jahan. And I guess it was Jahan. I mean, not confirmed, but pretty much confirmed. But real quick, we're going to get into it more, but also including a former quarterback, MVP, that was at Commanders practice this week. But before that, a word from today's sponsor, BetUS. And a huge shout out to BetUS for sponsoring today's video. Use that first link in the description. You'll get a 125% sign up bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. They got the fastest payouts in the industry. And you look on the site right here. Once you click that link and create an account, it'll take you here. And if you want to make some bets on the Commanders, they've got so many bets. They got bets on every sport here, as you see on the left. But you click on football right here. You click on NFL odds week 1, and you are taken to the games for week 1. So obviously the first game, you got the Ravens and Chiefs, and then you can go all the way down to see the Commanders game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Look at those odds, see what you want to do. The Commanders are 3-point underdogs against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Tampa, 425 game. You see the over-unders 42. I think the Commanders could win that game, and you can go ahead and bet on that and other games as well, season props, so many things to bet on. So check them out, link in the description, and as usual, bet responsibly. All right, and again, a huge shout out to BetUS. Make sure you guys check them out. They're sponsoring the channel for the entire season. So we talked about Jahan, some other things, reasons why the Commanders are moving on from him. This is something that Cliff said, and this wasn't directly about Jahan Dotson, but I think indirectly a little bit. Talking about him. So Cliff was asked on what he wants from Washington receivers. There's a whole answer right here if you want to see it, if you want to read it. But basically the biggest point from here, he says, be physical and play hard without the ball. I think that's what we preach, is like everybody's going to run routes and make catches at this level, but how do you play without the ball? That's interesting. I think JP in the comments was like, that's an interesting comment on an interesting day, or some tweet like that. And it is interesting because that is not something Jahan was. And Jahan, there's a lot of things. He's a good route runner. He's a good red zone threat, and can even, he has some yak ability. He really does. But what he doesn't really have, he can't, like beat a cornerback off the line. It's just really hard for him to do. He's not very physical, and he's not a great blocker. It doesn't mean he's not a willing blocker. He just doesn't got that. He doesn't have that size and maybe that mentality you need to be a good blocker, because there are some small blockers, small receivers that are good blockers, but it's very, very rare. They have to have a different type of mindset. And so it's not really a knock on Jahan. It's just not the type of receiver he is. He's not a great blocker. And they do have guys like that on the team that are good blockers. Terry McLaurin, Diami Brown, even Luke McCaffrey. Those guys can block. So Jahan really wasn't a fit with this scheme. He wasn't having a good camp, at least to the standards of a former first round pick a couple years ago. And then combine that with, I just don't think the connection was really there with him and Jaden. I think that is really why all those reasons combined. That's why the Commanders traded him. It just didn't make sense. They wanted to give him a chance because if they didn't like him from the jump and didn't want him from the jump, they would have traded him at the draft. I'm sure they could have gotten a little bit more from him because, the last month or so, I think what they've said publicly, I don't think it's impacted the trade value a ton, but definitely a little bit. And then also, you wanting to move him in the off season, like middle of training camp, that also brings his value down a little bit. If you would have done it in the draft, it makes a lot more sense because, it's a new regime and, these other teams aren't going to think twice about it. But you trading him in the middle of the, training camp, that says something. Like, you're not liking what he's doing for you. And that's why I believe they wanted to give him a chance. They liked the talent. They were like, you know what? We're going to see what he does here. Let's see how he vibes with Jaden. Let's see how he looks in this offense. And it just didn't work out. And I'm fine they took that chance. And, they're taking a chance also trading him into a division rival. But I like what Jamal said here, and shout out to him. Trapper Dive podcast, a bunch of good Commanders content there. But he says anytime a team trades within the division, something's up. And I agree. And that does not mean, though, Jahan can't have a good season and career with the Eagles or wherever else he goes. It just means that the fit really wasn't there if the Commanders were willing to trade Jahan to, the Eagles, a division rival, in the middle of the season. That's kind of what my takeaway was from it. I think Jahan's going to be fine. The trade value is what it is. I don't like that we had to give up the 5th, but we got a 3rd-round pick, 2 7ths. I really hope, I think we need to get another receiver, whether it's Brandon Ayuk, Cortland Sutton, T. Higgins, which don't think it's going to be Higgins. I don't think it's going to be Ayuk. I would love Ayuk. If it is Ayuk, I think it'll be next offseason or the year after that. But right now, I think, best case scenario is someone like Sutton. And I know a lot of people don't love Juju, but that's an option. Hunter Renfrow, Michael Thomas, guys like that is what the Commanders are looking at right now. That's what I think, versus guys like CeeDee Lamb, Ayuk, and T. Higgins. I just think it's very tough, and I just don't think it's going to happen. But that's kind of it on the Jahan Dotson news and my final thoughts in it. It is what it is. It just really never worked out here. And he had a really good rookie year. He was a good red zone threat. And then last year with Bieniemy, the offensive line, how it just didn't work out with him. And he's not blameless, though. His hands weren't great, wasn't, super open all the time. And, didn't make some catches he should have. So it's not all on the team last year. He definitely didn't step up the way he needed to, that we thought he would. He actually regressed. The quarterback that was there today, though, doing a little bit of a segue. I guess he was there yesterday and today at practice. That's Matt Ryan. Obviously has that connection with Dan Quinn. Was his quarterback for a while there in Atlanta. Good to see him around. Sure, Jaden can learn a few things from him. I think he's just doing the rounds. He's a media guy right now. But good to see him there. Another thing, Jaden Daniels made a behind-the-back pass today in practice. That's crazy. And Zach Ertz had a really good day yesterday. Some injury stuff. A lot of the vets are kind of, taking some time off, like Fowler, Payne, and Farrell. And then Jaden Daniels will not play in the preseason game against the New England Patriots. So it's going to be the Jeff Driscoll show for sure. Trace McSorley is going to play, and then Sam Hartman. Practice today at least a little bit, so maybe he'll play. It doesn't look like Mariota's going to play, but Quinn said he's trending in the right direction for next week or the week after, so that is something to monitor as well. But that's kind of it for Commanders update today. A bunch of things to talk, that I talked about, but it is what it is with Jahan Dotson. I wish him nothing but the best for the rest of his career. Not going to really root for him in Philly because obviously it's a division rival, but, I'll root for him. I'd rather him get catches than Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown. I'll say that. And hopefully everything works out for him, and hopefully everything works out with the Commanders. So let's see what they can do with the picks they got in the trade. But that's it. If you guys did stick around till the end, go ahead and comment down below. I'm trying to think of a receiver. We'll go Josh Morgan. But thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and peace. And make sure you guys check out BetUS. Again, first link in the description. Peace.